So the time finally has come. It's time for me, your boy Rome Legates, to finally talk about Boadicea the Victorious newest release. Everybody's been chiming in. Everybody's been talking about it. It has been the hype of the fragrance community for maybe about a week and a half. Yes, I'm talking about this right here. This is the Eternal Sapphire Collection Discovery Set. Boadicea just released or re-released 2 of their recently discontinued fragrances, which Rose Sapphire and Amber Sapphire. And they just introduced 2 new fragrances. I guess what you could say a flanker of 2 existing fragrances, which are Violet Sapphire Supercharged and Carbon Sapphire Supercharged. So I'm excited. I'm hyped. Are you hyped? I'm gonna give you my thoughts on all 4 of these fantastic fragrances just to see which one might fit your style. So here are my thoughts on the Eternal Sapphire Collection. Let's talk about it. All right, so like I said, I spent about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks with these fragrances, and I've had these fragrances in my collection or samples of them at some point in time. Ironically, I don't own any of these fragrances, none of them. And there's a story behind one that I'm gonna tell you that's really interesting, and also why you shouldn't, judge a book by its cover. So here we go. So the sleeves open up like that, and then you have the beautiful fragrances sitting very securely in there. So we're gonna go right down the line in order. Let's have some fun with this. So the first one we have here is the re-release of Rose Sapphire. So this is 10 milliliter, beautiful. It looks exactly like the 100 milliliter bottle. They didn't skimp on the design or anything, as you guys can see. Every single detail, even on the back. So what does it smell like? So I smelled this when it first came out, I'm not exactly sure. I'll say about 8 years ago. I could be wrong. I'll put the time that it came out up here. But it was very jammy, very, very jammy, sweet, floral, fresh rose. And it definitely kept that DNA. But for some reason, they added some more strength to it. It definitely kept that jamminess from the rose. It definitely kept the freshness. There's a green aspect. There's almost a sweet citrusy aspect behind it. But overall, this is a beautiful floral fragrance, and there's hints, and I mean slightly hints of this Middle Eastern vibe. Like, there's a fragrance I have in my collection that came out from Guerlain a long time ago. And as soon as I smelled this, I said, oh, this has a little bit of that DNA in it. And that's this fragrance right here from Guerlain. And this is Rose de Cri du Desert. And you guys can go look up the notes. This has been discontinued for I don't know how long, but the DNA between these 2 has similarities when it gets to that kind of airy, dry, Middle Eastern vibe, when it has a little bit of a oud in the mid, but the rose is absolutely stunning. But let me break down the notes for you guys in this one. In the opening, you have cardamom, curcuma, geranium, and a spicy saffron. In the mid, you have Turkish rose, a sweet neroli, hedion. So when we get down to the base, this is when some of the funness that I was talking about, and it brings a little bit of that Middle Eastern vibe, comes out. So in the base, we have benzoin, cedarwood, labdanum, myrrh, cypriol oil, patchouli, and musk. And like I said, if you are a person that enjoys floral fragrances, if you want something jammy, if you want something slightly fresh, also slightly sweet, but lends a little bit of that resinous Middle Eastern dry desert kind of feel with this benzoin, and also I would say it does have this slight animalistic tone in the base, but absolutely stunning. It lasts forever, even with this 10 milliliter fragrance bottle. This will go a long way. This right here is a great value in every aspect. It's almost $1,000 for a full bottle. So to have a small percentage of that and still be able to enjoy the fragrance to its fullest, I think you could take advantage of this. It is absolutely stunning. I will get more into it in a full review, but I just wanted to give you my first thoughts, my overview of this fragrance. Stunning. Definitely go check it out. Let's go check out the next one. So the next one we're going to talk about is Amber Sapphire. So Amber Sapphire was a fragrance I was introduced to, I think around 2021 or 22 was when I first got a chance to smell it. And I was in Miami hanging out with my wife. We took a vacation and I went into Osman, I think it's called Osman's Boutique in Miami. And he was just raving about this fragrance, and I smelled it and I was like, okay, well, let me check it out. Let me see what it's about. I smelled it and was extremely underwhelmed. I think it wasn't the fact that the fragrance didn't smell good. There was two factors. He hyped it up way too much for me. My expectations went too extreme. I'm thinking this is gonna be just crazy when it comes to the amber fragrance. So when I smelled it, I was like, a little underwhelming. And that second reason is because I'm used to a more oriental type of amber fragrance, and this is not that. I'll put the notes up here so you can see them, but I'm gonna tell you what I get from this fragrance. And when I do a full review on this fragrance, which is coming soon, I'll give you all of my full thoughts, break it down like I usually do. But let me tell you how this fragrance changed after wearing it for like the last week. So, of course, I didn't buy it there. When I got it a couple of weeks ago, this was the second fragrance I smelled, and wow, this is what happened to me. I sprayed it and transported me back to 2021, 22. And I was like, oh man, the amber is still dry. It's still very dusty, and it didn't work, right? It didn't fit the vibe that I was looking for. It brought me back to why I didn't want the fragrance. But I waited roughly about 10, 15 minutes. I put it on the strip just like now. In about 15 minutes, it just blossomed. It came alive. I started to smell this crystallized amber that had a subtle sweetness to it. This dry desert smell started to have a little bit of a soft spice to it. It started to become a little bit more dense, and at the same time, this thing changed my entire perspective on this fragrance in its entirety. In the open, I got the fresh bergamot. Really didn't suit what I was looking for because I'm thinking I'm gonna get spices at first. But then, like I said, that 15 minutes came around and then the cinnamon spice started to come. And then right after that cinnamon spice, the amber started to really just erupt and awake. And then it started off with, like I said, the more dry, crystallized amber. And then it became sweet and oriental, maybe about a good 10, 15 minutes after that. The rum in this has a slight booziness, but also brings that oriental vibe, that boozy smell, gave it a little bit of that sweetness. Also a little bit of that spiciness that I was talking about. The Cambodian oud in this did bring a little bit more of, like I said, this darkness to the fragrance. I don't know where it came from, but man, I truly am in love with this fragrance. This is fantastic in every way. Trust me, you will continue, if you're like me, you will continue to smell yourself over and over, experiencing every layer of this fragrance in different ways. The dry down has its own kind of flavor. It has its own playful side. This cashmere note, this vanilla in the dry down. Those two aren't like the creamy note. This is once again that dry vanilla. This is trying to be sweet, but a little bit tamer. It has a nice little resinous, smoky tonka bean that also adds a pinch of sweetness to it. But yeah, this definitely surprised me. This is why I tell you, do not judge a book by its cover. Give it time, let it sit on your skin, and then you'll be amazed. Probably already did enough to review this fragrance for you guys, but once again, I'm gonna do a full review on this fragrance. Stay tuned. Let's go check out the next one. So, Violet Sapphire Supercharge. Now, you know I'm gonna be as honest and transparent as I possibly can. I have never smelled Violet Sapphire. Didn't get an opportunity, had no reason to want to because I assumed that it's gonna be very feminine. Thank God that they were kind enough to send me this one because I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm gonna say more than that. I am blown away of how great this fragrance smelled, and my expectations were exceeded. Because on paper, trust me, this is going to scream female, feminine, that beautiful queen. Absolutely. And rightfully so. Because the fruity aspect of this fragrance in the opening leans slightly feminine on paper. I'm gonna keep stressing that, on paper. You're gonna get, like I said, these fruity aspects. You're gonna get passion fruit, you're gonna get raspberry in the opening. The passion fruit is gonna be bright, it's gonna be super sweet. The raspberry is gonna be slightly bitter, but also tropical. You're also gonna get some pear, some peach, and to me, there's a soft spice in there. But when you hit the mid, right? On paper, you're just gonna be convinced that this is meant for women. All of these beautiful floral notes start to come forward and take control of this entire fragrance. From the orris note to the jasmine, the Bulgarian sweet rose, and the magnolia flower. So those notes all just, to me, I said, on paper, I'm like, man, yeah, my wife is gonna really either love this or she's gonna wanna give this to maybe a family member. That's how I felt. Something said, I'm not gonna say something. God said, Rome, put it on skin. I sprayed this on skin, y'all, and I was like, oh my Lord, bruh, this is fantastic. Now, the floral notes definitely came off, but how the fruit blended with the orris and also blended with a note I didn't mention, which is the cashmere note. Those notes changed my whole perspective. But then I started to smell this oud note that was supposedly in the note breakdown in the base, which I probably put the notes up already. But this is not just for females. Not to mention this fragrance is beast mode. This is one of the fragrances that I would say do not spray on paper, immediately spray on skin and leave it there for about an hour and see how this fragrance just plays on your skin. This is absolutely unisex. Of course, the color of the bottle is going to say females. The notes might say females, but trust me, the base of this fragrance is going to blow you away on top of the fruits and the florals and that egglewood that I was talking about. Once again, the full review will be up. I just wanted to give you my thoughts on this beautiful fragrance. Do not spray this on paper thinking that you're gonna get the full picture. Spray it on your hand, spray it on your neck. Experience it and wear it. Violet Sapphire Supercharged is a must-have. Me and my wife will be sharing that one. All right, we are at the last fragrance, and this one, honestly, most people were probably the most hyped for. I was excited. I'm like, all right, you know, I'm all about the ouds. I'm gonna, you know, as you can see, there's a lot of fragrance here that has oud either in the beginning, base, or somewhere in the fragrances. But Carbon Sapphire Supercharged is my first experience with the Carbon Sapphire fragrance. So I have no kind of comparison to make it except with a fragrance I'll show you in a few minutes. But what I can tell you from this fragrance in my experience with Carbon Sapphire, this is truly going to take you on a trip from not only the Middle East, the northern part of Africa, even to India. And I say that because the level of agarwood, the 3-4 different types of rose notes that are in this fragrance, and the combination of spice and booze, it's just a cruise trip around the east side of the world. And I'm all for that ride. So, what did I get when I sprayed this and smelled it? The first thing I smelled when I sprayed this was the Cambodian oud. There was definitely some spice and a boozy note that met with this immediately with that. But I definitely got oud in this fragrance. And this wasn't the most subtle oud. And I'm gonna tell you right now, this fragrance is not subtle. This is a very aggressive, a very beautiful smelling Cambodian oud. But when you spray this, be prepared to be hit in your face with a very strong animalic note. So, like I said, there's a soft spice, which is saffron. Then they say it's cognac. I would say, yes, there is aspects of cognac, but there's more of a woody tone versus it being boozy. So maybe the cognac barrel. So that's what I got in the opening. I also got some beautiful rose notes. They say that there's Turkish rose and also Bulgarian rose in this fragrance, which brings me to my point of saying, what can I compare this to? So the only fragrance I can compare this to that I have that has similar notes, but not in the same way, is Nebulous. Do they smell the same? Absolutely not. They're two totally different beasts. If you wanted to say what kind of animal you're dealing with, this is the brown bear, and this is the Siberian tiger. This is smoother, a tamed kind of beast where a bear is not going to bother you unless you enter its territory. This right here is going to stalk you because this is aggressive. And I don't want to scare anybody away to say that that one's better. No, some people like a smoother transition of oud. The Nebulous has a smoother transition between the florals and the oud. The rose dances with the oud. This, with all of the different agarwood notes in here, playing with the spices and the rum and also the floral notes in this, the ouds take over in this fragrance. The spices play the second most important part in this fragrance. The rose notes are absolutely prevalent in this fragrance. They make the fragrance stand out and they allow it to be a little bit more leaning towards a unisex fragrance than just a masculine fragrance. I think this is going to be appealing to a lot of oud lovers. I don't think this is going to be appealing to people that don't like oud because the dry down of this fragrance becomes very, very animalic, very woody. It has some masculine wood notes in the base, but it also has some creamy wood notes in the base. This is a fragrance that is specifically for a type of person. Not everyone's gonna like this. So, just letting you guys know my thoughts on this. I personally like the opening to the mid of this fragrance. I'm not 100% kind of falling in love with the dry down, but once again, I've only had it for roughly a week and a half, right? So a year from now, that might change. But for those who love this type of fragrance, you're gonna enjoy it. I would say sample before you buy, or once again, these 10 milliliter bottles are a perfect way to experience the fragrance without paying $1,200 plus for a fragrance, because this is a very expensive fragrance. So that is my thoughts on Carbon Sapphire Supercharged. And these are what I consider to be some of the most exciting fragrances in Boadicea's collection. And I'm so glad that they re-released the Rose Sapphire and the Amber Sapphire. Out of all four of these, I would say if I had to rank them from my from my favorite to least favorite, I would say Amber Sapphire is my favorite, Then I would say Carbon Sapphire is my second. Then I would say the Violet, and then Rose. Yeah, surprised me too. But all in all, this was fun. I hope you guys get an opportunity to smell these fragrances. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with your friends. You know how this works. You help me out, I help you out. I want to say thank you again to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Without you, none of this would be possible. All glory goes to you. I love you with all my heart. And I want to say to my guys, this is specifically to married men. And I want to speak on something that I'm learning and trying to do myself. As a man and a husband, a lot of the responsibilities and burdens on being a leader, being a provider, being a teacher can be overwhelming for men, right? Most times we keep a lot of the stuff internal. We don't express our feelings. We don't talk about the things that bother us. And we don't take time, I would say, to see the big picture, right? The burden was put on us, or the responsibility was put on us because we can handle it, right? But sometimes in that world of taking control, taking care of everything, we tend to forget that our wives also have responsibilities. They also have a lot of, things that's on their plate. And I want us to be able to remember that we have to acknowledge that. We have to remember to be there for them also. We have to remember that God told us to love our wives as he loves the church, right? And take care of them, be able to support them in their needs. And I'm learning, there's some times that I'm exhausted and I don't want to do anything. And that doesn't stop or shouldn't stop me from asking my wife if she needs help with something, participating in, helping in the house. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to be exactly what she is in the household, because she has her responsibilities like I have mine. But as men, we have to sometimes take a step back and say, you know what, we're in our own world, but they need a helping hand. They need help. They need support. And I'm trying to learn how to do that myself. I pray on it. I ask God to continuously remind me how to be a better husband, a better spouse, a better supporter for my wife, so she won't be overwhelmed with the things that go on in this house. To be honest, I drop the ball like 50% of the time. And I'm gonna be straight up with you. I'm working on it, because this is what I asked for. I asked for a family. I asked for a wife. I asked for a spouse. I asked for someone that can help me in my life. So just because she's helping me does not mean that I can't help her. So I say this to you guys. Don't be consumed with your own world, even if it's with your prayers, even if it's with your time with God, even if it's with, your buddies or work, because we can get consumed with those things. Be there for your spouse as best as you can, and ask God to continuously remind you of what your responsibility is in that part of your world. All right. I pray for you guys. I hope you guys can pray for me on this. I love y'all. And until next time, like I always say, it's okay if you want to smell like Rome. Check you guys out in the next video. God bless, in Jesus' name. Peace.